Good evening, students. Can by a show of hands, can you guys just indicate whether you can hear me or not? Okay, no. Thanks, Liesel and Keshan, for that. Thank you. Today's lesson, it is regarding, wow, Leonora, right off the bat, assignment 3 marks. Guys, I will be giving that loss, and then I will only be attending to your queries at the end of the lesson. But to give you context, Leonora will be receiving your assignment 3 marks as soon as we finished with them. Thank you. So today's lesson is about emerging technologies in cybersecurity. Something that I know a lot of students know about with the use of artificial intelligence. Right. So let's get into it. To get the admin out of the way, my name is Raymond Mavoy. I am one of the 4 AI 3701 lecturers. My email address is you can get hold of me at the AI 3701 mailbox if you need to get hold of me. Thanks. There's also another announcement that I need to make regarding the there's going to be a class for the exam preparation for all students. This week, there's a link here. The class is going to be from 5:20 until 7 o'clock in the evening on Thursday, the 19th of August. So it's going to, some of the queries that students have, hopefully will be answered then in that session. That is the aim of that session. Thank you. So that is wonderful. Subjects, emerging technologies. So what I'll be going through will be an introduction, I will be going through similar to your study guide, an introduction, outcomes and assessment criteria, discussions around Moore's law, the law of accelerated returns and disruptive innovations. Also, we'll be discussing the emerging technologies, the different types. And then later on, we'll be also discussing cybersecurity. Thank you. Apologies if I cough too much. Just have a bit of a cold. Thank you. So, in the beginning, so in learning unit 1, you learned about computational thinking to business problems. Learning unit 2, 3, and 4, we taught you how to automate tasks using VBA. Learning unit 5, we learned about data analytics, and learning unit 6 was about dashboard. So that's just to give you the context. Now, to the outcome of today's session, the outcome of learning unit 7, emerging technologies, is because technology is always changing, So it's essential for the finance professional to get comfortable with technology. Because we need to become relevant, to give context. 10 years ago, VBA was one of those things that not a lot of finance professionals knew about. Currently, right now, it's being taught at an undergrad level, Yeah, that's it. So, assessment criteria, we'll start with the technologies, but at the end of it, we must be comfortable identifying and motivating the most suitable technology in a business environment. That is what we will be, focusing on. We also might able to provide the benefits and risks related to the technology identified. Please note, however, this is not a copy-paste theory dump exercise. In third year, we are looking at more the application of data. So students will be judged mostly on that. Similar to the scenarios that we give you, we'd give you a scenario and then looking at the business scenario, and then out of all the technologies available, you should be able to recommend which one is suitable. So again, some of the theory, which I'm sure most of you have gone through again. So firstly, we just look at Moore's law, and Moore's law essentially looks at the fact that transistors or microchips double, quadruple every 18 months. Therefore, each and a half computers double in computational ability. The costs remain relatively the same. You know, should be paying less for this computing ability. I mean, again, to give you context, now we've got cell phones which have got 8 gigs of memory. And back in the days, if you had a laptop which had 8 gigs of memory, you had a very powerful laptop. So that's in a nutshell, what Moore's law is about as well. And using the same full technology again, in the 1990s we had bricks. Then we had in the 2000s, we had, flip phones were all the rage. In the 2010s, that's when the first Apple iPhone was launched in late 2010, in the late 2000, and just trying to remember when was it, 2008. I think that's when one of the first iPhones were launched. The 2020s phones have become smaller now. We've got Elon Musk trying to put computer chips, cell phones into his head. So again, we'll be looking at the law of accelerated returns. I'm just going to skip through this because this is actually theory. So I think you guys can study this on your own, you're more than capable of. But the key thing from the accelerated returns is the transition from artificial narrow intelligence to artificial general intelligence, and finally artificial super intelligence is expected, you know. Um, And it's one of those things that if you Google artificial intelligence, it looks like a black box. And there's so many applications required to do artificial intelligence. We artificial narrow intelligence, examples include how companies now utilize your past sales data to make recommendations for you in terms of discounts, to now currently where we have general intelligence, where they include certain aspects. The big rage right now is what is called, the English Justice Claim, dynamic pricing, where, to give you a simple example, an umbrella costs you 50 Rand, but the minute it starts raining, an umbrella costs you 150 Rand. Now they're looking at implementing that in grocery stores. So if it is, for example, Heritage Day weekend coming up, and then all of a sudden there's a shortage of wors in South Africa, the prices will go up. So that is what artificial intelligence is looking at these days. Thank you. So again, these are just pictures which show, narrow intelligence, specific tasks, super intelligence, stuff of superhumans. If you've ever watched Terminator or The Matrix, that is what they're thinking artificial super intelligence is going to be about. Thanks. Then, okay, so this section, then we go to disruptive innovation. And this phrase has been around for so long that I think a lot of people should know what it means right now. I mean, a simple example, if you're all like me, you used to go to Mr. Video and you'd hire DVD to go watch it. These days you've got streaming services such as HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Netflix, Showmax. Wow, the list is endless. So essentially, um, disruptive technologies around it. I mean, another one is streaming platforms. When they got into South Africa, they disrupted MultiChoice's monopoly, in inverted commas, over content. So, MultiChoice used to have contracts with a lot of the overseas production companies, but now you don't have to wait for Sunday for you to watch your favorite Game of Thrones, or what's the latest one again? Forgot it. But yeah, series, you can just sit at home and binge watch it. So that essentially is what disruptive technology is about. you I mean, to give you another example, even though we've grown accustomed to it, in the 60s, When the ATM came out, it was a big thing. You instead of you going to the bank now, you could just go to the wall, put in a card, and money would come out. You know, so that is disruptive technology innovations. Okay, so now I'm just going to we're going to have a discussion around. Uh, there's an article in your study guide that you're supposed to download. This article shows you the growth cycle of exponential technologies. Please study please download the article and study it because it could be examinable. Right. One of the things that you must focus on is the 6 Ds of exponential technology. Right. And these are digitalization, deception, disruption, demonetization, dematerialization, and democratization. You know, for the digitalization of information. So let's use a simple example because I'm exposing my age right now. When Facebook started, you know, it was uh, back in the days for you to have all your pictures and so forth. You needed to have an what do you call it, an album and take all your pictures and whatnot. Then we had digital cameras, but again, all the pictures were saved on USB or flash drive or something like or hard drive. When Facebook came now, we were able to save them in a cloud, right? So after that happens, the second stage is deception. So initially when Facebook started out, people were like, nah, I don't really want this, I haven't spoken to these people in years since I've left high school, etc., etc. People were saying it's irrelevant. However, when you look at the fact that Facebook was trying to sell you, their big value proposition was the fact that they would connect people, and from those connections, then they would be able to get user preferences and data. Then uh, that's where the rub is. Disruption is after they've refined the technologies. Yeah, they once they refine these technologies, disrupt established industries. I mean, for right now, most people get their news from social media because it's that quick. To instead of waiting for the evening, just 7 o'clock or every Sunday or every day to buy a newspaper, you can get your news instantly, right? And again, demonetization. Sometimes technology removes the need for consumers to buy something. An often quoted example is how digital photography removes the need to buy film. Um, if you're old enough, you can remember that you used to buy film that you had to put it and then to take your pictures, then you take them to Agfa Photo First, and then they give you pictures back later. These days, you don't need to do that. Now, dematerialization, again, similar to the one at the top, where instead of you having a physical product, now the products are replaced by digital assets. Examples are like a GPS locator, encyclopedia, radio, record player, camera. All of these things are consolidated, sorry, into a smartphone. So that's the dematerialization. Now, democratization is that as costs increase, access becomes available to everyone. A simple example would be when the iPhones came out, they were hard to get. If you're an iPhone user, because at the time BlackBerry was still, ruling the roost, it was difficult. And then Apple refined it and refined it and refined it. And sooner or later, the cost became cheaper. Even an iPhone costed 20,000, right? But that's a story for another day. And then so it became cheaper for everybody. Thanks. And then, see, this is disruptive innovation. 20 years ago, all of these products, okay, not 20, let's make it 30. All of these products you need to keep. Now, a simple cell phone can do all of these things. A calculator, music player, a hi-fi video recorder, all of them. Mhm. Mhm. Another one is instead of you having a physical GPS in your car now, you can have Google Maps, etc., etc. So disruptive innovation is all over us. We see it wherever we go, right? Again, just with regards to disruptive innovations, you know, now that you understand these, you can also, for further information, to assist you, download these two reports, Gartner from Gartner and from Deloitte. They are there to assist you. Um, they are not there to, they're not examinable. However, as a finance professional in a dynamic work environment, it is your responsibility to stay current with technological developments. And I cannot stress that enough. Because technology and finance, you would find that they are mostly linked together. So if you want to remain relevant, you have to start knowing how to utilize technology. Thanks. Excuse me. So let me just quickly check whether you guys can hear me. Okay, you guys can still hear me, which is good. So emerging technologies. So we'll be discussing a few technologies today, artificial intelligence, robotics, including RPA, synthetic technology, 5G, the Internet of Things, 3D printing, augmented reality, virtual reality, digital twins, and the metaverse. Those are like four different technologies, but they mostly cover the same thing. So the first one is artificial intelligence. This one most students, or not, let me not be spicy, not all of you, some of you know about what artificial intelligence means. Um, but mostly it's the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. You know, the most famous current one is ChatGPT, where a lot of people do their homework and their assignments. They put the question in there and it gives you the solutions, right? So what is artificial intelligence? Now, there's different types. You've got machine learning, neural networks, natural language processing, and robotics. So machine learning is essentially giving computers lots of information to recognize patterns. Now, machine learning system is a simple one for you to remember it by think of the weather, right? So what the South African Weather Services would do is they would input a lot of data into their systems on historical trends, and that would assist them into doing the weather forecast, right? Um, Neural networks, those are computer systems designed to imitate the neurons in the brain. So those neural networks were, for some people who have got speech impediments, they they put voice recorders on them. And I think a famous example was Professor Stephen Hawking. He was able to talk using the neural network system. Um, Natural language processing. So this one is, for example, the ability to understand speech as well as understand and analyze documents. Simple one, if you ever go into the postgraduate, there's a lot of NLP software out there which assists you to summarize articles. So you would upload the PDF in there and you would ask it questions and you would interact with it, an example, something like ChatGPT. And robotics, which we already discussed. Thanks. Now, we utilize, this is a slide which shows the use of artificial intelligence in financial services. So, for example, anti-money laundering and fraud detection, we utilize things like natural language processing and chatbots. Um, for cognitive computing, something like algorithmic trading. Machine learning would utilize things for customer recommendations. Again, using an early example, They would look at your custom, the spend in specific geographic area, spend in a specific time of the year, and then they would make recommendations for you. I mean, if you missed the delivery this past weekend, whenever the Springboks are playing, you would see that they would have a special in your area, or Woolies would have in their, what do you call this thing, their app, for a bribe or something like that. So those are some of the applications that you can utilize it for. So yes, the risks versus benefits. So again, there's always benefits, yin and yang to these things. So the benefits for AI would, for example, be virtual agents are always available, whether they can speak properly and understand them, that's a different story, but they're always available. Um, it can analyze big data sets very quickly. It delivers consistent and accurate results. Um, in the sense that, once you program it, it can always give you consistent results. Now, the risks are, for example, it's expensive to implement artificial intelligence. For example, in South Africa, we've got only one, what is called a supercomputer that is down there in Cape Town. I think it's at the center for computing high performance, something along those lines. So you require a big computer like that for you to do coding in the artificial intelligence environment in South Africa. And also there's a limited supply of qualified workers to build AI tools. You know, and these specialists are scarce, therefore their fees are quite high. There's also a fear that AI could eliminate human jobs. This increasing unemployment. And in South Africa, we've got quite a high unemployment rate. So the more we move towards the mechanization, digitalization of our industries, we could be having an unintended consequence of increasing our unemployment rate, which is already quite high. Thanks. Now, there's ethical concerns around AI, and these are quite interesting, right? The first one is bias and discrimination. So AI systems are educated on large volumes of data, which may contain societal prejudices, either prejudicing people based on their race, their gender, their ethnicity, etc. Again, it's a problem. And now incorporating those biases into AI systems might perpetuate inequality in recruiting and lending, criminal justice, and resource allocation. You know, so that is quite very tricky. Transparency. Again, AI systems, due to the high value attached to them, they operate in a black box with a limited interpretability of its operation and decision making. So a lot of people don't know what they're doing. You know, another thing would be accountability. You know, if a driverless car gets involved in a car accident, who is responsible for the car accident? Is it the person who coded it, the person inside the vehicle? That is a problem. We've already spoken about job displacement, security and safety. AI can be utilized for cyber attacks, misinformation, and autonomous weaponry. Like currently, right now, it being election season, we've seen a lot of increases in this disinformation with pictures and videos of supposed people doing certain things in order to sway opinion. So that is quite critical. The environmental impact, complex AI models require a lot of computational power, which again increases energy consumption and environmental effects, especially when it's fueled by non-renewable energy. Privacy. AI systems depend on large volumes of data for efficient operation. Protecting this data from misuse and unauthorized access is crucial, right? A simple one would be there's been lately a utilization of AI tools for online meetings. And the question I always ask myself is, okay, so I did not give permission for this Read AI or Otter to go into the meeting. And now it is recording something that is being said and is interpreting it. For me, that always is a bit of a gray area there. you know, um, AI can affect employees' morale. Lecturers, I know, we really get demoralized when we mark your guys' assessments and we start realizing that, you guys are utilizing artificial intelligence a lot in them, because we put a lot of effort into the uh, to the assessments and remarking and whatnot. And for some students to go there, it just can get very demoralizing. But that's okay. We will deal with that. Robotics. So we already discussed robotics. Um, early on in Unit 2, synthetic biology. Yeah, I know. This is quite interesting. So synthetic biology, there's the definition. So essentially, it enables the rational and systematic design of biological systems, facilitating the creation of novel biological components and systems through intentional design rather than merely understanding natural biology. That is a mouthful. It's quite intense. But what does it actually mean? So this is what it means. Right. So a growing plant, and now they are they have synthesized enzymes from fireflies and put them into a plant. So in future, instead of when you're walking at night, you've got glow in the dark plants, right? That is essentially what it means. Anti-malaria drugs are being now developed from modified yeast. Vanilla, as synthetic vanilla, is also being done from yeast. Excuse me. They're also developing oils and other alternatives from modified algae, to avoid utilizing palm trees. That is essential of synthetic biology. Means. Thanks. Again, synthetic biology can also enhance the nutritional content of ingredients. As the example they give, they imagine a cake that is filled with essential vitamins and minerals, and also can enhance perishable ingredients not to be perishable. So those are the advantages. However, there are safety concerns, there's consumer resistance, and there's also regulatory challenges, right? Safety concerns, one of the genetically modified organisms into the environment and the food chain, because we don't know what the outcome would be. That's a concern. Another one would be the utilization of GMOs used to health and environmental impacts. It's also quite scary. Regulatory challenges. For example, especially in the crop industry, in the farming industries, you find that what has now been companies developing different strains of seeds and so forth. So the question then would be, if you utilize the seed from a certain company, the expectation would be that you have to pay them for utilizing their seeds. However, some of these seeds could have happened, and some of these mutations could have happened naturally in the environment. So how do you regulate around that? Excuse me. 5G, I'm going to actually skip to the picture to show you what 5G does. So 5G is the network which makes the Internet of Things work, in summary. Yes. So the feature of 5G, 5G allows for the greater use of technology. Some network speeds that people speak about are like a gig per minute upload and download. So essentially it's a faster network which allows you to do more with the speed. The benefits, as indicated, data transfer is quite fast. Latency is quite low, so there's delays between sending and receiving data. Networks are quite reliable, so there's less downtime. In South Africa, as we call it, system offline. The risks around 5G, increased 5G connectivity between premises and devices can make organizations more vulnerable to hacking, data breaches, and so forth. As they are, there's due to there being so much data in 5G networks, organizations must make sure that that data is always protected. Otherwise, in South Africa, you're in trouble with the POPI Act. For example, on service outages are experienced, operations could halt if they depend on 5G technology. Again, the infamous system offline that we have gotten used to in certain parts of the world. Okay. Now, the Internet of Things. So let me just check what is that. Just looking at some of the. Okay. I'm loving some of the conversations on the chat, guys, around the utilization of these things. Yes, the slides will be available for you after the class is complete. They will be uploaded on my UNISA for you guys to go through at your own leisure. The Internet of Things, is, for lack of a better word, it is a network of interrelated devices that connect and exchange data with other Internet of Things devices and the cloud. So examples would be, for example, a heart monitor implant, a farm animal with biochip transponders, vehicles with built-in sensors to alert when the tire pressure is low or any other natural or man-made object that can be assigned an IP address and able to transfer data over the network. Right. Excuse me. So essentially, if you have a smart home, you would have Siri or Amazon Alexa. Is it Alexa? One of those. Or Samsung has got the guy's name. Yeah, that is, and you have the ability then to send information to home. So when you wake up in the morning, you can set your temperature, your blinds can open up, and so forth. And again, these are just examples of the internet. It's, embedded mobiles, sensors, telemedicine and healthcare, etc. The benefits: efficiency, productivity. They generate a lot of data, which can sometimes be used for good. For example, if you in a warehouse, sensors that indicate if there's a low stock level on recurring items, or if you're monitoring a dam, if the dam levels go below a certain point, alarms can go off and people can be notified. Risks. As usual, when more data, more devices share data with each other, there's an increased risk in hacking, right? If an IoT device experiences an error, it could halt production or create an accident. Now, the other one is that there is no international standard for IoT devices, so it makes it very difficult for compatibility between IoT devices. It makes it very difficult for them to communicate with each other. And also, if we think about it, because there's no standard, then we can essentially locked to big companies, big monopolies, IoT standards, because then you can't cross-pollinate the different devices. So it was quite unfair on the consumer. The next one is 3D printing. I think a lot of you guys know what 3D printing is. So I'm going to skip the definitions. However, I'm just going to illustrate that it has gotten so advanced right now that we can now build houses using 3D printing, which is, for me, is quite phenomenal. The fact that now technology can build a house. Yeah, just leave it at that. So you can increase costs. There's so many benefits. I mean, decrease costs from it, cost savings. We can, instead of purchasing expensive parts, we can print them at home and save money. We can also do better parts, better quality. Scarce parts as well would also be printed faster instead of you waiting for them to be supplied by the original equipment manufacturers. The risks involved, yeah, warranty cancellations on affected machines, copy and patent right infringements can occur. But it's up to the individual then to decide what value is it for them. Augmented reality and virtual reality. Okay, this must explain it slower and then I'll show a picture. So augmented reality is designed to superimpose digital elements onto the real world, whereas virtual reality is an immersive experience that isolates you from the real world, usually with the help of a headset and headphones. So this is the best example I could find on the internet. Right? So virtual reality, you are enclosed, headphones, headset, you are in a virtual world. Augmented reality is that you are in the real world and you can still see things in the digital world. I hope that makes sense. By show of hands, do you guys understand that? And it is quiet. That means I have to okay. One person out of 125. Okay. Okay. Then I suggest you guys go. I'll explain more again in future what it is. Now, digital twins and the metaverse. Right. Now, the metaverse is a 3D enabled digital space that uses virtual reality, AR, and other technologies to allow people to have lifelike personal and business experiences online. So the metaverse is an extension, for lack of a better word, of virtual reality, where you can have my virtual reality is Mr. Mawe, Mr. Van Staden, Mr. Nzinga, sorry, Mr. Martin's virtual reality, and then you can have we can combine them and have discussions in the virtual world. However, we are still at different places. Right. Now, a digital twin is the digital representation of a physical object, process, service, or environment that looks like its counterpart in the real. Now, they utilize digital twins a lot in the manufacturing and construction industry because it allows you now to look at it's a digital representation, sometimes to scale of that object. So you can then see where the strengths and weaknesses in the construction of it, where there's possible issues. So this is an example of what we spoke about. So the digital world is the real world and the virtual world. So we actually rendering the real world to improve it. See, whereas the metaverse is a fictional world built into virtual reality. So again, something called a digital thread, which is quite important for these technologies. For example, we'd manufacture or build a physical object. The physical people interact with that object. We collect data on the interactions through the Internet of Things or augmented reality. We utilize the data for further decision making. And then we can create digital definitions for those objects. So it's a golden thread that just keeps on going. And that essentially assists in the design of cars, products, and services. Mm. So there's benefits, using VR and digital twins. I mean, the most famous example right now would be Microsoft Brain Simulator, which a lot of pilots utilize to learn how to fly planes. So there's a lot of benefits into that, particularly from training environment. The risks, high costs, physical discomfort, motion sickness, and eye strain. Um, again, there's always a risk of hacking with regards to these technologies. Excuse me. Drones. Again, drones, most people know what drones are. Most these days, we call them as UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, UASs, unmanned aircraft systems. It's a flying robot which can, um, yeah, it's a flying robot. That's a good very word. There's benefits, drones with sensors and cameras can automate inventory tracking. They can also be utilized for faster and efficient delivery of products. Delivery trucks have high CO2 emissions, so drones can also be utilized for the impact to CO2 costs. Yesterday, I was reading an article of how they're utilizing drones in the mining and oil industry, where they put sensors on them, and these sensors fly when the drones fly over, they send out magnetic waves, and these magnetic waves go beneath the surface, and they're able to pick up different types of material, metals, and possibility of oil and gas underneath. So now we no longer have to go and drill in the ground. You can utilize drones for that. But there's always risks involved. Regulations, especially around privacy. Accidents, who is to blame for a drone accident? Again, this is an example of the utilizations and what I spoke about, with the mapping and survey, essentially. Photography and filming, drones have been utilized more and more to take images of properties for delivery, some places, public emergency services, but these are quite niche. They're not the main industry. No, in agriculture, they use drones a lot for spray, for also public emergency services. For example, if there's a forest fire, the drone can go above and see, and they guide the firefighters for inspections and big equipment. They can also be utilized. Yeah, and the digital currencies. And everybody knows crypto scams again. So again, I'm going to skip over the definitions because the expectation is that you would know the definitions, and I'll go give you examples of them. Advantages of cryptocurrency, privacy. There's no need to calculate foreign exchange rates. There's no bank account restrictions, etc. So that is the benefits, but those benefits lead a lot to the risks. Particularly, there's the volatility, because there's lots of scams around that. They offer limited consumer protection. If your cryptocurrency is worthless, who you report it to because there's no central issuing authority. Right. So these are some of the scams that we know. People utilize crypto currencies to blackmail people. Fake exchanges where you think you're buying cryptocurrency on a proper exchange, but it's fake and you're just giving money to somebody. Yeah, there is a lot of. I'm sure most of us have heard of or know of somebody who has been a victim of crypto scams. Look at blockchain. Excuse me. So, blockchain is a public ledger that keeps track of transactions across numerous computers. Right. So, it is a network of computers with the same transactional history. Now, by it dispersing the information, it makes it easier from audit verification and validation, right? But I'm going to explain it is easier using the step, right? So blockchain includes these 5 steps. Somebody, an authorized participant, inputs a transaction, which is then authenticated by the technology. That actually creates a block, right? That represents that specific transaction or that specific data. That block then is sent to all the other computers in the network, right? Authorized nodes then validate those transactions and add that block to the existing blockchain, right? The update is then distributed across the network, which finalizes the transaction. So blockchain, really a fancy form of accounting. If we really had to break it down into excuse me, into its use. Right. Again, this is a picture which shows you how it works. As indicated, there's a transaction. We then send the transaction to all the different computers. It's verified. Then it's combined with other transaction. The block is added, and the transaction is then finished. So there's benefits, to blockchain. It's incorruptible, resilient, trustworthy, and cost effective. But there's also risks. um, these are mostly theory, but and we don't really expect you to know them in detail because they're quite technical. Right? But yeah, so these are some of the uses of blockchain in industry. You can utilize it for tracing food. Because the way the system is set up, it's easier to validate where the source of food. You know, also in healthcare, the tracing drugs, patient data management. So there's a lot of uses for blockchain. So cloud computing is when we save information or we interact with a computer system, not on a local computer, but off-site, on the cloud. Excuse me, there's benefits to that as well. Just going through the examples, right? So we can have access to databases, applications, mobile phones. We can store things there, like what we utilize with your Office 365. You can save things on the cloud, etc. So there's risks, you know, for it. Again, the key of storing sensitive information can make it a target for hackers. Cloud service providers can experience outages, which also may impact the availability of the data stored in the cloud. And you can become over dependent on a cloud service provider to a point where then you do not have you are locked in and you do not have the ability to negotiate for fair pricing, you know. Um, the next one is big data, which already has been discussed before. Autonomous cars, self-driving cars, self-explanatory. You know, so I put up this picture from my age. You remember Knight Rider was the first autonomous car. And then, so this was the fantasy we had, and this is the reality we're currently dealing with regards to autonomous cars, right? Quantum computing. Yeah. So as I indicated earlier, that in South Africa, we only have one quantum computer that I know of. It's called NGAWA. I think it's the Center for High Performance Computing down in Cape Town. But essentially, quantum computing is utilizing very big computers to assist us, you know. The difference between quantum computing and classical computing, sorry. It is, you know, classical computing, it's something can either have a state of 1 or 0 at the same time. Whereas in quantum computing, things are represented in qubits, which have greater data usability. Power increases exponentially in quantum computing, where it's a one-for-one relationship. Um, You know, the other reason is quantum computers, you know, they need to be kept up ultra cold in order for them to work properly. Classical computers can work at room temperatures, you know. Like I indicated, quantum computing is more suited for tasks like optimization problems, data analysis, and simulations. Whereas most everyday processing is handled by classical computers. The benefits: quantum computing can solve problems quicker. It can go through multiple possibility scenarios faster than normal computers. They can also be utilized for artificial intelligence a lot and optimization issues. The risks, you know, it's still its experimental stage, so its validation is still under question. They're quite expensive to build and maintain. They're quite complex and require deep understanding of both the specific problem and quantum mechanics. Let me just take a quick 1 minute break while I just have a glass of water before we discuss cybersecurity. But before I go to cybersecurity, let me just think. I was going to go through the questions, no, but it's fine in the chat. So cybersecurity. So one of the biggest risks these days is cybersecurity in the form of cyber attacks. Cyber attacks can be detrimental to businesses, individuals, causing reputational damage, corruption, loss of information, financial losses. This is a problem, you know. So it's quite important for us to know, to be able to identify and explain the types of cyber threats to organization. And also you must be able to identify and explain the controls available to manage cyber threats. Okay. So I'm going to start off with, you know, the cyber risks of social media to organizations. You know, human error, where, you know, malicious actors can get access to your computer network, and then making inappropriate comments on social media, either through the personal or the company account. Big example of this was with this year when X, former Twitter, got said people must start paying for the blue tick box, and then anybody could pretend to be any company that they were. Okay. Yes, Larato, it is a lot of theory, but that is the price that we have to pay being students. Unfortunately, um, there's nothing more I can say about that. So cyber risks, productivity, yeah, that's a big one. Um, Most employees these days are on social media instead of doing their work, which can also reduce the operational efficiency of companies. Data protection is also important as to how we can regulate the data that we have. Hacking is also a problem. Reputational risk, as I mentioned earlier, with the I think it's Eli Lilly, what the name of the organization, when somebody was pretending to be them online and their share price went down by 10%. You know, inactivity sometimes not being online can be viewed as problems, and then the company could be viewed in a different light. There's costs. The biggest one is non-compliance with regulations. Could also be significant. So these are the employees of social media, risks and impact. Uh, just for you to go through. There's also cyber risks on cloud and mobile computing. Which some of the risks I discussed them earlier. For example, whether initial prices will maintain and so forth. When I said if you lock yourself into a cloud computing service provider, you run the risk of them controlling pricing, and then you have no other recourse but to utilize them. Regulatory risks are a problem because when you save data in the cloud, if the server is located in a different country, which country rules then apply? Those could be a problem. Again, unauthorized access to business and customer data. First one is hacking. The second one is that the cloud service provider's staff has access to your data. So you must be confident that they also can utilize your data properly. So these are some of the risks that you need to know, but we'll discuss them later because they're similar to the risks in cybersecurity. Um, you know, threats to an information system. There's always threats. Human error. We can put in 40,000 instead of 4,000. There's natural disasters, power failures, and so forth. Those are threats. Um, there's also hacking. Hacking is when somebody who is from outside the organization gets access into your system and without your permission. There's some damaging options available. They can auto delete files, change information, interfere with access controls, etc. So hackers is a broad term, but essentially there's unethical and ethical hackers. Ethical hackers are people who are mostly employed by the company to find out any security breaches in the system. And unethical hackers normally are people with ethical malicious intent. Sorry. So there's types of hackers. The important ones are the top ones. White hat hackers. Those are ethical hackers who improve security systems. Black hat hackers are malicious hackers who exploit systems work. Gray hat hackers are if you mix black and white. They do a blend of both black hat and white hat activities. So they sometimes work within the law and sometimes outside the law, depending. So those are the key ones. Cyber terrorists, There's creation disruption for political and ideological reasons. State-sponsored hackers. These are hackers that are essentially employed by governments to hack. Hacktivists promote political or social messages. A famous one would be the hacktivist group Anonymous. So IP spoofing is when somebody forges the source of an IP address, therefore they conceal the actual IP address, making it look like it's from a trusted or authorized source. This makes sure that the cyber criminal remains anonymous while carrying out uh, criminal activities. For example, criminal can send out fake sales orders to an organization, then the organization manufactures, delivers them, and they increase thereby incurring unnecessary costs. So that's an example. Computer forgery, people forging letters, matric certificates, degrees, and other things. Computer fraud is uh, self-explanatory. We've discussed scams earlier on. So malware. So we're going to now be going through malware and the different types of malware. Excuse me? So you've got ransomware, which is essentially when they blackmail you. Spyware is when they steal your data. Adware is when they just give you a crap load of advertisements. Worms is when information sneaks spreads across computers. Trojans when they sneak malware into your PC, and botnets essentially make your computer into a zombie. So you can't do anything until you pay a ransom for it. So botnets are types of ransom. Essentially, all of these are types of ransom. So ransomware is when they hold for ransom until you give them money, right? Botnets, as indicated, is when somebody controls your computer. A Trojan horse is it's a type of software that pretends to be good software while it is releasing uh, malicious code into your system. Mostly is known as a remote access Trojan or a rat. Once in the system, it then can prevent you from accessing the system. And yeah, spyware we've already discussed. A worm is a self-replicating program or program code, but differs from a virus in the sense that it doesn't need to be attached to an existing program. So it can just burrow through and go to other computers. So a logic bomb intentionally inserts a program code that will be set off. There's sort of a malicious function, for example, delete data or corrupt files when triggered under certain conditions. So a kit is a tool that grants an attacker continuous full access to computer while hiding its access. Um, you know, so that is how it could and how it works. So identity theft is when they steal your information for fraudulent purposes. Other types of cyber crimes include social engineering and phishing. Social engineering is when they study your um, social media profile, chat room to get loose on your password or something. Shoulder surfing refers to sharing the targeted user to accidentally see or hear the password, especially if you go to public spaces to utilize. That is what shoulder surfing is. Phishing is when you receive email which is alleged to come from a proper or a reputable organization, and then it is not a reputable organization. Okay, but that will also be discussed later. DDoS, a denial of service attack, is when essentially when they overwhelm the system's resources so that it can't respond to service requests, and you end up having a system crash or a website crash. Distributed denial of service attack is essentially utilizing lots of computers to do a denial of service request. Okay, SQL, yeah, please study the theory, guys. Some of these things are theory. There's so many, only so many examples I can give. Cross-site scripting attacks occur when a victim is attacked when they visit another organization's website. So, for example, if you are on Takealot or somebody pretending to be an online merchant, and then the pop-up appears and you click on it, that pop-up, by clicking on it, then you have it downloads code into your computer and you are hacked, essentially. Buffer overflow attack is when a system is similar to denial of service, is when the computer system is overloaded with information and consequently starts to overwrite existing content and to refresh itself. And this is just a summary of all of the and some of the cyber attacks that I've just discussed. That was the theory from AIN 1501, which we must know. So now for AIN 3701, this is the important things. So we're going to be looking at the controls. There's protection, detection, and response controls I've just gone through. Okay, but specifically, these are the controls that we must be focusing on for AIN 3701. And I'll explain this to you in more detail again, but some of them I think students already know. So two-way authentication, for example, is when you get a password on your cell phone to verify for you to do an online transaction. I think most of us have dealt with this one. Secure passwords is this practice. Whenever you're setting a new password online, there's specific rules. A mix of letters, numbers, and symbols is always key. No birthdays, no children's name, partners' names, etc., etc. There's rules around secure passwords. Regular updates is the process of frequently updating software so that any patches, any vulnerabilities and security features are effectively patched through. Antivirus software is software designed to detect, prevent, and remove malware and other malicious software from computer networks. There's a lot of them, from VPNs to, there's quite a lot of them. Firewall is essentially like it says. A firewall is a wall which security systems that monitor and control incoming and outgoing network traffic based on predetermined security rules. So firewalls then stop. It's one of the controls for people not to go into a computer network. Now phishing. As explained earlier, phishing is when you receive an email. In this example, I've gotten one from SARS where they say that you must click a link and then click on the link and then you input your details, etc. For them to obtain sensitive information. And we have been inundated with phishing emails. Cryptography is essentially encryption, of information so you get given a key and information works, and then to decrypt the information, you get that. So domain name systems, it's linked to IP spoofing, where people might try to change their IP address to make it look like it's a domain that is a credible domain, So securing the domain is just implementing measures to prevent that from those attacks. Public key cryptography. Right. So let me quickly just check something. Now, I'm going to go very simplistic in this thing, right? And I will provide an example of, I'm going to go skip to the end of this, but utilizing an example with two-factor authentication to give you context. So if you require to send money utilizing a bank, all right, the way the process works, go into a banking app and do a cash send, and it generates a number, right? But it also asks you, in order for the recipient to open that, to get that cash sent, you need a code, right? So that is the private key, the code that you give somebody to be able to withdraw money from the ATM is the private key. Now, the public key is the, for lack of a better word, the reference number for that. So if after doing the transaction and then it says, can you share it with somebody, and then you send them the code. So for example, it is C2024, right? So I go to my local branch and I say, other transactions, withdraw funds, and then it says put in the code. It's a public key. There's nothing special about it. That C2 2024, anybody can input it, and then it's going to ask them for the private key, right? Which is the PIN code. So then you put in the PIN code, and that is, in a simplified way, I'm trying to explain how this cryptography works, right? But now in the cryptography method, it is a message that is being sent. So I send a message to somebody, and that message is encrypted, right, using a public key. But I've given the receiver the private key in order for them to open the account. Sometimes for you to you can receive PDF messages with bank statements and so forth, and in order for you to open them, you need to put in your ID number or something like that. That would be the private key. And I hope this makes sense, because I had to think long and hard about this example to simplify it. If you have any queries, guys, you can always contact me. Okay. Then the next one would be a digital signature, right? So digital signatures allows you to sign documents, and the receiver would have your private key. Oh, sorry. Again, it's very confusing, these things. So a digital signature is a technique that allows the person or entity to sign a document electronically. So it also uses two pairs of keys: a private key, which is kept by the signer, and a public key, which is shared with anyone who needs to verify the signature. So similar concept. I give somebody, for example, I sign a contract online, and I give my banker the public key, and then the banker then puts in the public key and verifies that I am the one who signed this specific contract. So that, in a nutshell, is a digital signature and public key cryptography. Wow. So I went through a lot of slides, skipped some of them because there are a lot of theory. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Are there any questions? you're allowed to type on the chat. Okay. Hang on, it's going past. I assume that then leads us to the end of today's session. Thank you for attending.